And we are ready to move into our midday session. I love the beautiful discussions that have happened and the connections that have been made and the sharing. So thank you all so much. I'm Michelle Whittington. I have the privilege of being your hostess for this next hour. I have been a member of Anton. I was trying to figure it out, I think, since 1996. So I've been around for a little while, and I love this organization. I currently am privileged to be on the board and also to serve as the treasurer. So as the treasurer, I will say there is an opportunity to donate, which I'm going to do in a few minutes to support the beautiful work of this organization. Just go to our website and you'll see a little donate button, and we would love to have you if you are called and feel nourished about today, to be sure to make a donation to this gorgeous organization. So to set the tone in song for our time this morning, I am honored to introduce a singer, a songwriter, an inspirational speaker, a sacred tour leader, and for me personally, the most important thing, a dear, dear friend of mine. Her name is Cerise Patron. And Cerise, I turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here and to support this amazing organization. And today is all about up-leveling, right? Up-leveling our consciousness, taking it to the next level. I think 2020 showed us that shift is necessary and sometimes obligatory. And so we are here to raise our vibration and go to that next level of who we are. And so I wrote this song specifically for that. It is called Rising Up. And I invite you to raise your vibration with me as I sing it. The fear kept me down for too long, afraid to take a breath, scared of being wrong. Oh, but every leap of faith led me right where I belong. Now I'm ready, I'm ready. Stepping into the place I fear most, darkness all around, I'm braving the unknown, and where I'll go next, heaven only knows, but I'm ready, I'm ready. So I'm rising, rising up. With my wings spread, I'm opening up. Oh, I am here for a grand adventure, ready to show up. So I am rising, rising up. And like a web of love, I spread my light. As I own my life, the fire ignites the world. Oh, and together we're rising up. With our wings spread, we're opening up. Oh, we are
profound gratitude to Cerise and that amazing song. Let's just stay in this beautiful consciousness as I now invite beloved Anton member and senior minister of Alpine Church of Spiritual Living to bring us even higher in prayer.
Thank you, Michelle. So let's just join together. Take that nice, deep, cleansing breath and recognize that we are in this beautiful, holy place where there is only God, only love, feeling that divine presence through everything that is. And that's what we are. So with gratitude, we acknowledge this beautiful, beautiful entity of Anton, bringing us all together, allowing us to just play and be and share and rising up and higher into a higher consciousness level of the truth of what and who and everything that we are. So I bless all of this retreat that we are now participating in, and blessing all of the presenters, knowing that each one is coming from their highest and best. So grateful. So I simply say thank you, Mother, Father, God, for this beautiful, beautiful day and way that we can share and be. Letting it go, knowing it is so, I simply say, and it is so. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Gay, so very much. So I just want to make a couple of brief announcements before we move into the meat and the body of our time this afternoon for some of us. It's still morning. First of all, if you are not speaking, if you would please just remember to mute your microphone. That just makes everyone's life a little bit better and a little bit easier. We'd appreciate that so much. And just remember, we have a full day of amazing things happening, breakout sessions. You have a variety of things you can do at different times. Be sure to check the schedule on Anton's website, or if you want to know what's coming up immediately, you can go to the breakout room button at the bottom of your screen, and it will show you the Pacific time and the Eastern time something is starting, and you can see all the options that are coming right up. So lots of opportunities for amazing things today, including later today, a pray-a-thon. I just want to speak to that for a moment. And the pray-a-thon is going to be whoever wants to be in that breakout room can come together, and we're going to identify a topic together that will be facilitated to identify a topic, and we are all going to pray aloud, all of us coming together. And it's not about whether you know how to do a 5-step treatment or whether you're a good prayer. Of course, we all are good prayers, right? But we're going to come and bring our voices together in this cacophony and consciousness of prayer. So come be a part of the pray-a-thon later today. It's going to be amazing. The other thing I just want to mention, and we want to really let you guys know, so we're going to hit a little bit hard our annual, now that's just happening after 2 years, live conference at Unity Village in October. If you have not been to Unity Village, it is truly one of the most sacred, holy places there are. It is an incredible place. And then to bring the consciousness of Anton and the talent and the gifts of Anton to this conference, it's amazing. There is still opportunity and room for registering for the conference. You can do that from newthought.org or anton.org. Both addresses take you to the same place. But we're going to show, once again, we showed it this morning, but we want to show one more time the video, 2-minute video about the conference itself. So I'm going to ask Bill or Luke to play that, and then we'll get to the meat of our day.
Hi, this is Mitch. This is just a personal message to let you know how much I'm looking forward to being with you at the ANTN conference at Unity Village in October. New Thought has a message to provide to the searching individual, to the individual in need at this time in our history. And I want that message to be as resounding, to be as powerful, and to be as practical as anything that came from the insights of New Thought's founders in the late 19th and early 20th century.
When you're home.
I take dictation from the guides that I work with.
It's so exciting to have you here, right?
I sit in a chair, I close my eyes. I imagine that I'm climbing into the back seat of a car and turning the steering wheel over to the guides that I work with. I'll hear one phrase repeated incessantly, and once I give voice to the one phrase, everything else that my guides have to say comes tumbling out afterwards.
I know for certain that there is more than we've been taught. And I know for certain that everyone in this room is far more extraordinary than they've ever been told.
Pay attention. Yeah. There's no need to wait. 45, you're there.
And so that's what we have to look forward to coming up in October. Hope to see all of you there, and it will be a glorious experience. But speaking of glorious experiences, we get to now have a glorious experience with 3 beautiful souls who are going to offer us what we're calling Power Talks. And our first Power Talk is by someone who really needs no introduction because he is beloved, I think, by everyone on this in this retreat, and that is Daniel Nahmod. And I could give his long, amazing bio, but I want to say this. I had him at my center once many years ago, and I introduced him by saying these words. Daniel started out writing music to support ministers' messages, and now ministers write messages because of being inspired by his songs. So he is not only an amazing songwriter, he is a beautiful soul and an incredible speaker. So Daniel, we are looking forward to hearing from you, talking about gratitude and growth. Daniel.
Thanks, Michelle. Hello, everybody. I have just been editing an interview I did with my mom. I've done a series of interviews during the last year on Facebook, and I interviewed some really interesting people, including my mom. And my mom told the story of her childbirth in a tiny clinic in Uzbekistan. Her family was refugee from Poland and then from Siberia. And when my grandmother went into labor with my mom, they were in this tiny clinic in Uzbekistan, penniless and homeless. And they were told by the clinic that they would need to leave the clinic as soon as the baby was born. My bubby had an ace in the hole, though, which was that she had learned
We might be having a technical difficulty, so I am going to turn to our technical
hello again.
advisors.
Was somebody saying something?
We lost you there for a moment, but I think you're back now, Daniel.
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear us, Daniel?
Yes.
You can pick up again if you can.
It's glitchy. Mm. Mm.
It's poor bandwidth.
Everybody do a quick prayer.
All right, is that any better or no?
We heard that part.
Am I here?
Yeah, are you hearing us?
I'll take that as a no.
We can hear you, Daniel, but your camera, I think sometimes if you turn off your video, then there's little interruption to what you're saying.
How about now? Am I back online?
We're
Yes.
hearing you.
Yes, we can hear
You can
you.
hear me now? Oh, okay. I'm so sorry. Was somebody saying something nice about video teleconferencing? I think somebody had something good to say about take it back. Anyway, sorry about the interruption. So I don't know if you could hear anything I had said before. When my mother was born in this tiny clinic in Uzbekistan, there were refugees, World War II. My bubby knew how to sew. So she traded a couple of nights in that little clinic for sewing nurses' uniforms. That was the deal she offered to the little clinic that said that they needed to leave. They were penniless and homeless. My bubby had apprenticed as a seamstress. And there's no way of knowing, but it's not unreasonable to think that my mom's survival as a newborn baby, and maybe even my grandmother's survival as a first-time new mother, may have depended on the seamstress who taught my bubby to sew. So they then emigrated to Chicago. And the only reason they emigrated to Chicago was because a great aunt had moved to Chicago at the turn of the 20th century from Poland. And as the Holocaust ended, these relatives in Chicago found my grandparents' names in a book, a list of survivors. So I am, although I have never met, I don't even know the names of the seamstress that taught my bubby to sew. And I don't know the name of the great aunt that sponsored my grandparents to emigrate to the United States. But my gratitude towards them connects me to my ancestry. I am personally grateful to these people whom I never met, who were in the process 100 years ago of making my life and my brother's lives and my son's life possible. When I was in grammar school, I went to a private Jewish school through 8th grade. I had I was going to say I had the misfortune or good fortune, that was kind of the point of my little talk here, of being in a class with some bullies. And I know it's going to be shocking, possible to believe that I was short, dorky, friendly, and unconfident. Not much changes. And I did get the crap kicked out of me by some of those kids in grammar school. Now that ordinarily would not appear to be a gift, except that the gifts that I received from those jerks actually keep on giving. For example, I was in a private Jewish school with these kids who were ostensibly religious, and anybody who comes from any traditional religion will know that being religious is actually not correlated with being kind. They're not the same thing at all. Religious is observant, religious is knowledgeable, religious is trained, religious is not sweet or even necessarily kind. And kindness, for me, it turns out, is my principal value. Now, how did I learn that? I learned it then. I learned then in grammar school from those kids that I cared more if you were nice than if you were religious. Fast forward 30 years, and I'm 40 years, maybe, 30 something years, and I'm writing songs for a living. And I had the opportunity to put into words and music a philosophy that I really, it's not even a philosophy, it's an entire worldview, a view of myself and my place in it, and my view of humanity and my priorities as a person. put all of it into a song called One Power, which would not have existed without kids showing me right in my face what it meant to be religious versus what it meant to be kind. And I decided then, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, that I cared if you were nice. I didn't care what book you read from, what day of the week you prayed on, what clothes your clergy wore, what holidays you celebrated. It didn't matter to me at all. What mattered is if you were nice to yourself, nice to others, and nice to, the animal world too. I've always been something of an advocate for that as well. So those bullies, my gratitude for them is crystallized in my values and my body of work, which they helped to create. I'm sure I'm the only weirdo or heretic here in this group, but in my own family anyway, I was definitely the weirdo in just in the sense that I just told you, that I was more interested in nice than I was in observant. But it went as far as, for me, getting engaged to a girl who wasn't Jewish, and it caused a tremendous rift with my parents. It was very, very painful for them and for me. It flew in the face of these centuries of tradition in my family, and it broke my heart. It broke their heart, honestly. Those broken hearts led Danny to become a man. That separation was it was an earthquake, but from that earthquake came, I think in terms of Chicago. I grew up in Chicago. In Chicago, the Great Chicago Fire happened, right, in the late 1800s, and it was catastrophic. From the Great Chicago Fire, so many city blocks were laid waste in downtown area of Chicago that some of the finest architects in the world made their way to town, set up shop there, and went on to develop what we now know as modern architecture. It was invented in Chicago because the slate was clear. Now, for me, my Great Chicago Fire was that separation from my parents, which did not last forever, but that separation, that clearing of the land, gave me, the architect, a clear slate to design my own life. So am I grateful for it? Yes. Did I enjoy it? No. I once went on a date with a cute curly-haired girl, and the date ended, and we said goodnight, and the next day I called her to ask her out again, and she didn't call back. And I told my brother, who was much more of a relentless smartass than I am, and that's saying a lot. I told my brother, I said, it was a great date. I don't understand it. We had a great time. He said, correction, you had a great time. So, how many dates have you gone on that the person never called back? How many job interviews have you tried that you didn't get the job? How many, we just bought this unbelievably, disturbingly and shockingly and unexpectedly ramshackle fixer-upper of a house a year and a quarter ago, but it wasn't the first house we filled out an application for. It was the third or fourth, and that's a kind of a short list, I think, for some people who stack them up until they end up with their home. In these situations, we tend to fight against the no and resist it. The no, meaning, no, you can't have the house. No, you don't get the job. No, you don't get the date. Right? In my case, in the music business, no, you don't get the appointment. No, you don't get the interview. No, you don't get the co-write. No, right? Whatever it is. No, you don't get the gig. We fight against these things naturally. The ego is hurt. It stirs up fear, all kinds of things. But my beautiful wife and my beautiful son are upstairs right now because that cute curly-haired girl didn't call, maybe anyway, because she didn't call me back. Was she doing me a disservice, or was she doing me a kindness and a service? Was she in some weird, you can call it mystical or woo-woo, whatever you want to call it, or just kind of lovely accident, whatever it is, she was actually conspiring to lead me to my family. So, gratitude is an interesting thing. I can be grateful for sure for living in Southern California. It's ridiculously beautiful, all good. I once heard a DJ say, real estate in Southern California is free. The weather costs a fortune. So I can be grateful for that. That's kind of easy, right? It's not as easy to be grateful for the bullies, for the heartbreak, for the rejections, for the aches and pains. If you've got aches and pains, I've got aches and pains. When I hear myself complaining about them, I think of a friend of mine who was in a car accident in his teens, who lost the use of his body from the waist down, who has never since been able to feel his legs. Okay? So every so often I catch myself complaining about a pain in my leg, and I swear to God, I think of him. He would do anything to feel a pain in his legs, anything. And that applies to whatever you and I feel like complaining about, almost whatever you and I feel like complaining about today. So gratitude clarifies your values and teaches you, by the way, also who you want to spend your life with and who you want to spend your day with, right? It connects you to your ancestors, and it makes you happier on a daily basis, just simply to realize that the complaint I'm having, I'm not lecturing, most of the time is a privileged complaint, right? It's a privilege to complain about bad internet service. My boy has been in school for a year. I promise you, there are kids in that school who could not get online in any reliable way to see their teachers. So we don't have great internet service. Okay. So I have nothing to say other than that. I've gone over time already. I apologize. I apologize for the glitch as well. But my point overall is that trusting the ups and downs, seeing them for what they really are, acknowledging them and not hating them, not trying to correct them or fix them or make them wrong, is a pathway to seeing, I dare say it, in many cases anyway, the perfection in it. It crystallizes, it clarifies, it connects. Gratitude is sneaky, does a lot of good behind the scenes. That's all I have to say today. Thanks.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you. Let's just pause and in our own way acknowledge Daniel. I like this with a standing ovation. It's beautiful. We are grateful for you. We are grateful for you. Thank you. Profound words to take in. How blessed we are. And we're blessed next to hear from an incredible singer, songwriter, over 20 solo albums to her credits, having opened for likes of John Denver and Harry Chapin, and she's played at Carnegie Hall and the Cellar Door. She wrote the beautiful song that began our retreat today, Amazing Things. And to talk to us today about now what versus what now is Megon McDonough. Megon.
Thank you, Michelle. And hello, everyone. It's just such a pleasure to be here and really what I needed. Danny, I miss you. I love you. I miss Chicago. We will be together soon. I just need to say that my last and latest CD is called Breathe and was produced and arranged by Daniel Nahmod. How blessed am I? So yes, today I wanted to talk about, what a year and a half so far. Now what versus what now? With a name like Mary Megan Margaret McDonough and being the seventh of 9 children, I'm sure it comes as no big surprise that, yes, I was raised Catholic, which I like to think explains my intense interest in Buddhism and attraction to Jewish men. Love you, Danny. And so I've had to pivot my whole life. I've had to pivot. I don't want you to think that it was a house full of 9 kids. My parents got married during the Depression, had 3 boys, twins, and then my brother Tom. And then there were 17 years, no kids, due to some physical things that had been tipped out of place, and then they got tipped back into place. 6 more kids after 17 years. I'm in that batch. Yes, I went to Catholic school. Sister Mary Rebecca taught me how to play piano, which I think is pretty amazing that I still like to play. She did a great job. But when I was 5, I found out I was rehearsing for the St. Thomas the Apostle Christmas pageant, in which I would sing All I Want for Christmas Is My 2 Front Teeth. And I heard from the television in the corner, ha, 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 it's the Woody Woodpecker show. And it was like, what is that? And I was completely pulled in. I was a little bit of a Irish fairy myself. I was a cosmic kid. I believed in the fairies. We lived out in the country. My father was, both my parents were Gemini, so it was like having 4 parents. We're very creative, always encouraged us to be creative. So singing and dancing and being funny by the time I was 5 was just de rigueur. I mean, it was just what you did to get attention, number one, but also as this great expression. So I just took what got me attention and parlayed it right into a career. Fast forward about 5 years, at 10, the Beatles saved my life. I saw the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show. And again, it was one of those magical moments of, what is that? I must go there. And also the nuns were starting to recruit me. So actually, wanting to marry Ringo was going to save me from the convent. And then I begged my parents daily for a guitar. Guitar. And the following Christmas, I got a guitar. I flew into the house after midnight mass, and there it was. Behind the tree, for the last time, quietly, I played like it was like the Red Shoes for me. I just played and made songs up. And the following summer, my father died suddenly from a stroke. And 3 months later, my oldest sister, who had been accepted to the Royal Academy to study acting and art, was killed in a car accident. This would be the complete pivotal moment of my life that would, I would do a swan dive into art and music. I would play the guitar and just pour everything into the music. I would write poetry, play the guitar, and keep my mom upright. That was the job. I would say that growing up in a big family like that, two creative parents, I like to say, by the time I came along, my parents were out of film, out of gas, but rarely out of Cutty Sark. They, it was an Irish household. It's cultural, but that culture can really catch up with you in later life. I found unity and new thought in the 70s, in 1979. In 1977, I started reading the Daily Word. In 1979, I went to my first Unity service in my hometown of Crystal Lake, Illinois, not the end of the world, but you can see it from there. And I picked up a book by Emmett Fox, and it changed my life. Around this time, I had also been introduced to the 12 Steps of Al-Anon. And this also changed my life. Fast forward many years, I had been, I won, when I was 14, I won a radio contest in Chicago called the WLS in Chicago Big Break Radio Contest. And I got a record contract and I won drums. You guys, I was a folk singer. And big speakers. And 2 years after that, I had an opportunity to move to California and be in the music business. I'm sure no one thinks the Me Too movement just started. It could have been a lot worse. I got out in time. But it turns out that term, you'll never work in this business again. Yeah, that's a thing. So finding new thought and inspirational music for me was so healing and so welcome. By the time the 80s came along, I started at I was in a band, and I had a band, and we were touring around, and my pianist was music director at Unity on the North Shore in Evanston. And he said, I'm going out of town. Could you fill in for me? This was 1983. I said, Ed, what would I possibly play? He recommended a couple of my songs. And you know what? I must say, I have not looked back. I found a wonderful home in Unity and New Thought. I've met you wonderful people. Thank you, Reverend Mary Beth, my beloved pal who invited me today. But I wanted to talk about now what? When on March 12th, I played my last gig. March 13th, it was quarantine time. I was living in Evanston, Illinois, right down the street from the religious science church where Daniel Nahmod was music director years earlier. It's beautiful, isn't it? It's the divine order of all of it is so beautiful. Anyway, I quarantined like everybody else, and guidance literally said, stop. And you guys, I had been trying to break out of show business for a few years then. By that time, I was able to stop, regroup, and just take a breath. I wasn't out of my jammies before noon for months. It was marvelous. My friends were saying, you got to get online, you've got to do Facebook Live, and I just said, no, I'm not doing that. Guidance is saying, and I felt just fine saying guidance is saying. But it was time to make a decision. And you all know the power of decision. I thought, well, I've got very little income coming in. I've got a sister in Maryland and a sister in Minnesota and a brother in Kentucky. I love Minnesota. I think I'll go to Minnesota, where I am now. It's cold, but it's a very nice cold because it's Minnesota. So I made a decision knowing that I'm not quite sure what's next, but I know how to pivot. There's a lot of talk lately about trauma, and there's also talk now of trauma resilience. Just like Daniel was saying, it's all in divine order. I know that now at 60. I can look back and honestly say, I get it. It was really hard at the time. And I call it being pulled through the keyhole. Ow. This is her divorce. Ow. But one day I'm on the other side, but I cannot do that alone. So making the decision to pivot was number one for me. There's no one here at this conference that has not heard the word vision and who does not know the power of a vision. Wow. But I had to sort of grieve the previous vision. I had to grieve because when I first came to New Thought, I wanted to go mountaintop to mountaintop. I didn't want to go to what I call the Valley of Goo. I wanted to just do the spiritual bypass. And the first bad day I had, I was rather surprised. I'm like, my wand is broken. Fully human, fully alive. So I recommend sort of having a memorial for your former dream, your former vision that is completely changed now. So grieving the dream, having a vision. I of course love Reverend Dr. Michael Beckwith's book on life visioning. And then I recommend interviewing yourself. Interview yourself from ages 5 to 7, and then ages 12 to 15, and really see what was lighting you up, because you can remember, it's in there, those ages felt like. If there's loss and trauma, and come on, who doesn't have that? That there is a way, of course, that we all know to heal that. And I took a terrific coaching program because, you guys, it turns out I've had enough stage time. And I feel really complete with a beautiful career. It was not always easy, but it was absolutely what I was here to do. And I will always be singing somewhere. But I don't seem to really have had my fill of inspiring and helping others to find their creativity and work with others as a coach. I was a coach when I was a kid. I loved it. And the music was just a way to minister and get a positive message out. And listen, Amazing Things was started years before it was finished with Janice Stanfield, my beloved singer-songwriter friend. So the life of a song is magical. But you interview yourself, and then there are these things called SMART goals, which I really need, because I am fly by the seat of your pants productions. I like to, let's hurry up to get to what's next. So SMART goals, you might know: specific, S for specific, M for measurable, attainable, A for attainable, realistic, and time bound. Here are a few problems for me. Getting specific, not always easy for me, but realistic. In New Thought, I, of course, have learned and heard the sky's the limit. Well, that really doesn't work for me. That I'm unlimited, limitless possibility. So for me, honing that down to what is next, getting quiet, going within, letting it land, and really taking time, giving yourself the gift of your own time. The questions from A Course in Miracles: where would you have me go? What would you have me do? What would you have me say? And to whom? Where would you have me go? What would you have me say? What would you have me do? What would you have me say? And to whom? Apparently Minnesota. Okay. I know what's important. Out of 9 of us children, 4 are left. I want to spend as much time as I possibly can with the other 3 and my friends and family. And last thing I want a presence is, nothing has been more healing for me than forgiving myself for mistakes, real or imagined. Because my noggin can make up so many stories about what I've done or who I've done, or, so real or imagined, self-love, self-forgiveness, and asking myself the question every day: how can I be of service today? Just one day at a time. I'm so grateful to have been with you. I hope something that I've said has been helpful. Keep coming back, and don't do it alone.
Thank you so much, Megan. Such richness from what you have shared with us. We're going to have to go back and listen to that talk again and again. So beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just to pose the question, is it what now, or is it now what? That's the question. Beautiful. How blessed we are.
Thank you.
And our final blessing is a most incredible woman who is a singer, a songwriter, a recording artist, a speaker, an advocate, an author, a minister, a spiritual coach, a teacher, and a beautiful being of light. If we could all turn our mics off, that would be great. Thank you. Thank you. Christy Snow is going to be offering welcome to the new normal. Welcome, Christy. Welcome, Christy.
Thank you, Michelle. It's so good to see your face, all of you. I was like private messaging as quickly as I could to a few of you going, it's so good to see you. It's so good to see you. It's so good to see you. It's so good to be here. And, you know, I've always said that New Thought musicians are getting a crash course on the job training ministerial degree. And I said that before I was a minister. And now that I've had that training, I still agree. So Megan, Daniel, thank you. That was a blessing from both of you. So here we are. Let's breathe into retreat. Re-engage, re-energize, reconnect, re-emerge, retreat. Surely I'm not the only New Thought minister, Science of Mind minister going, retreat, pray without ceasing, treat and retreat, treat and retreat. I heard that yesterday when the way Reverend Mary Beth said, retreat, it's time for retreat. And I thought about how many opportunities we've had over the last year. I know for myself, for sure, just to remember to continually pray without ceasing, pray without ceasing. So much going on. And just in case anybody's popping in here to these rooms and are hearing the word treatment for the first time, let's just go ahead and remind everyone that is our word for affirmative prayer. It's where we remind ourselves of the truth that there's one power and one presence. It is God, the good. It is moving through in as all of its creation. We are that divine intelligence, that divine love. I loved that my friend James Mellon this morning reminded us we're not some speck of God. We're not like a little tiny piece of God. We're God expressing. How cool is that? So reminding ourselves of the truth is what we're doing when we're treating and retreating. And for me, over this last year, one of the biggest things that I've had to continually retreat about is willingness to embrace this new normal. I gave a talk a year ago called New Normal, thinking, okay, it's been a month. Here's our new normal. No. It just continually, we've been reminded that every moment is a new normal. Every single moment, we're given an opportunity to realign, retreat, remember the truth of our being. And to know that, you know, when I say welcoming a new normal, we are creating that new normal. It's not like, oh, well, I'm just going to welcome whatever someone else is going to create and hand to us as here's your new normal. No, we're getting that chance and we're still getting it to create our own new normal and the global new normal. How exciting and how huge is that? So welcoming, let's think about that word. What does it mean to welcome something? It means to gladly bring it on in, you know, to welcome something is to receive it gladly or in a friendly way. And so I just realized I had a stopwatch over there. I didn't turn on. Babe, will you turn that on for me? Because I was raised Southern Baptist and I could get Baptist on y'all. We could be here a lot longer than 15 minutes. Thank you, honey. I looked over and I'm like, well, that's not going to do me a lot of good if it's not turned on. Anyway, okay. To welcome something is to receive it gladly or in a friendly way. So thinking about the word welcome, immediately I go to swing wide the doors, the time is right. Daniel's beautiful song that we love to welcome our congregation in on Sunday mornings with. So looking forward to that, right? Think about the things that you so gratefully welcome. And right now we're all looking forward to welcoming our congregations back in person. We're looking forward to welcoming our friends and our families in bigger and bigger ways. I remember before COVID, Wednesdays next to Sunday was my favorite day because on Wednesday, probably my wife's too, because on Wednesdays I would clean the house and I would cook all day long and I would print music. And then after work, the music team would show up. The music team would show up and I would feed everyone and we would laugh and we would sing and we would learn songs and rehearse songs. And so I think about that when thinking about welcoming a new normal. What did I do to welcome Wednesdays? Well, I prepared cleaned that house, honey. I prepared, I cooked a new dish every week. I prepared, I picked the songs for Sunday and had the charts printed, had the room set up for everyone's instrument, and we were all ready to go. I invited them into my home, our home. So I prepared, and then I looked forward with great anticipation. I prepared, and then I lived in an expectancy of good, as Dr. Ernest Holmes asked us to do, right? Live in an expectancy of good. So what are you living in expectancy of? What are you preparing for is my question. What are you preparing for right now? What are you living in an expectancy of? Because we know, seek and you'll find. So what are you seeking? What are you preparing for? What are you anticipating and living in an expectancy of? Remembering that as we welcome a new normal, we are creating that new normal, and we want to create one that works. It's time that we created one that is just and fair and good and kind. Loved what Daniel said about kindness. That matters, right? Kindness matters. And welcoming and being in this expectancy of good, it's more than hoping. I know you know this. I'm preaching to the choir, I feel like, but it's more than hoping. It's being that. It's being it. It requires that we're willing. This goes back to my treat and retreat, being willing to change. Something that many of you know I wrote a song about in 2003 because I was trying to convince myself it was true. It was called Change is Good. And I would write songs about things I wanted to believe. That was a big one. So I still can occasionally have an opportunity to remind myself to be willing to change, willing to be vulnerable. Huge when we are welcoming a new normal, when we are welcoming our best version of life, being willing to change, willing to be vulnerable, and willing, as the Taoists say, to not know to grow, right? Be willing to not know. So here we are a year ago. COVID lockdown is happening. Luckily, we had just launched a brand new prayer chaplaincy program at our center. 16 prayer chaplains were installed January 26th. So now here it is, a month into the lockdown. We are, Angie and I are thinking of ways that we can help the prayer team stay engaged with the congregation. And so she says, we should have a training. I was like, well, I think I said we should have a training, honey. You should train us. So here we are doing a little Zoom training for our prayer team. And we had the iPhone, with the two earbuds. One is in her ear, the other is in my ear. I have the one with the microphone. And all of a sudden, all these questions start coming. They're asking, how do I do this? And how do I do that? And we continue to learn about Zoom. I learned something yesterday. Thanks, Phil. But we continue to learn. But back then, even my tech savvy wife was going, and so I take the microphone part, not realizing I'm holding it right here. I lean out of the purview of the camera, but into the microphone. And I say, honey, maybe we should do this again later when we know what we're doing. The entire team busts out laughing. And then I start hearing people go chuckle and say, yeah, Reverend Christy, that's a great idea. Why don't you teach us when you know what you're doing? Wow. There was a time in my life where I would have wanted to die. I would have been so embarrassed and so, just found out, right? That I wasn't perfect and didn't have all the answers. We don't have all the answers. It's okay. It's okay to not know. That's where we grow. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to welcome change and to continually be in that place of, don't know, just going to show up and be love and be open. Because here's the thing, we don't have to be perfect. We don't have to have every single answer, because there is a perfect life principle in place, and it is unfolding and ever evolving in this ever changing world by means of us. That's what we put our trust in, not in the personalities or in the amount of knowledge we have in a certain area. We trust that God's mind is my mind now, moving through me, expressing as me, renewing me in this now moment. Breathe that in. It takes practice though, doesn't it? That's why it's called spiritual practice. It takes practice. It takes practice to be willing to change, willing to be vulnerable, willing to grow, to lean in, to trust that. Even when, or actually, especially when it's hard, that's when we need to treat and retreat, to be willing to do this work. I have a friend that just started chemo today. Every 2 weeks for 6 months, a very extensive routine of chemo. And he got the port in yesterday to receive the treatments. And he said, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready. He is leaning into this. He is embracing his wholeness as he embraces the wholeness of the journey. He is leaning into it. That's practicing even when it's hard. And what do we know? That if we don't lean in and we lean away, for those of you who like to canoe and kayak like I do, you flip. The same is true with life. When we lean away, we pull away, we resist, we defend, we protect. We're just shutting ourselves off from God. We're shutting ourselves off from divine intelligence, divine flow. And so we lean in. I remember being in a canoe, and my friend was trying to train me and some other friends to go on this really long trek up in the Canadian wilderness and lots of canoeing. And he was giving us pointers. And so he's yelling ahead, remember, lean in. I'm like, yeah, I got it. Turn back around. There's this huge boulder and we're heading right for it on this rushing river. And what do? I jerked away, not just a little, a lot. My canoe mate goes this way. The canoe goes that way. I go that way. The oars, the lunch, the drinks, the keys, the camera, like everything gone. Because I leaned away, pulled away, went to protect. We had to lean in. If we're going to welcome life, lean in. It's us as individuals and as a whole that I'm talking about, of course, leaning in and making welcome a new normal by creating that new normal that works for everyone, and doing that by preparing and living in anticipation, in that expectancy of good. I remember walking in my neighborhood before I started dating Angie, my now wife, and I would walk and I would look around to see if anyone was looking. And when I was alone, I'd put my hand out to my side and I'd close my eyes and I would walk, and I would imagine that another hand slipped right in mine. A hand that was the hand of partnership, the hand of love, the hand of respect, the hand of mutually fulfilling relationship. I was living in an expectancy of that. I was preparing for that by cleaning up anything inside me that was not willing to receive that, by expanding my worthiness consciousness, by releasing anything and anyone that stood in the way of that wholeness. So how can you welcome your new normal, your individual new normal? Maybe it's greater prosperity, greater health and movement, right? What can you do? We say treat and move our feet, right? We don't want to do the words without works, which is dead. We want to be in action in our life. So preparation, and then living in an expectancy, not someone else do it for me and then I'll receive it. This is a cooperation, co-creation experience that we're living. And of course, it's not just for us, it's for our world. It's not just for us, it's for our world. And I know if you think about it right now, there's so much going on. You may think, heck with new normal, it's like the same old, same old. Turn on the news and it's the same old, same old. I look at the world, it's the same old, same old. That's because we have to keep creating a new one. A new one. What do you want? And are you being it? What is your joy? What brings you joy? And are you giving your time to it? Who lifts you up and fans your flame? And is that who you're spending your time with? What are you appreciating in your life, giving gratitude for in your life? Because what we appreciate appreciates, right? The value goes up the more we appreciate it. We amplify it, we magnify it, we magnetize it. We amplify, magnify, and magnetize our good when we live in that state of appreciation, that state of gratitude, and release the complaining. We're always restarting. Almost every class, I'm like, okay, time to restart the complaint-free challenge. Put that band on your arm. If you complain on day 2, switch it to the other arm. Make it 21 days consecutively and see how your life changes. Trade out your complaining for your gratitude and amplify your good and watch it rush to meet you. And as your individual lives change, our individual lives change, then we are changing the world around us, creating that new normal. If we want a different world, we have to be different in it, right? We'll feel like an old-fashioned amen on that one. We have to be different.
Christy. Amen.
We are,
Amen.
after all, as Reverend Mary Beth said yesterday, the growing edge of consciousness. Loved that. And so Be informed, be empowered. Don't be consumed by the conditions when you turn on the news, but don't turn off the news either. I encourage you to watch it enough to wrap your love around it, and then live empowered to treat and retreat, to create a new normal that works for everyone in every single moment. And affirm with me right here and right now, I am an active, empowered participant in this thing called life. I live in my expectancy of good as I create a new normal that works for everyone. We got this. It's time now. And so it is. And so we let it be. Thank you.
And so it is. And so it is. And so it should be. Thank you, Christy. Thank you. Beautiful, beautiful message to embody. We create the new normal. Every moment of every day, we create the new normal. What a beautiful time we've had. I'm so grateful to Daniel, to Megan, to Christy for enlightening us, illuminating us, inspiring us. To bring this time to a close before we go into a little break or a social scramble, if you want to bring spirituality, technology, and speed dating together, we can do that. But to bring us to a close, I'm going to invite my dear friend, a practitioner at my former center, Creative Living Fellowship, a former board president of that center, the youth minister at that center, and now an incredible life coach, Michelle Davis, to offer our closing prayer. Michelle.
My friends, as we move forward from this session, know that we are always connected to one another, that our hearts beat with that universal rhythm of spirit. I bless this beautiful sharing that we have just experienced and know that it is received by each of us just as it is needed. May we breathe in love, breathe in gratitude, breathe in growth, breathe in trust, knowing whose and who we are, and breathe out anything else. And so it is.